This is New Mombasa, and this is the beginning of my streaming all three of my cities. Sunday cities I guess. I don't have a name yet. I'm still working on it. This is the second of my three cities. This is New Mombasa, the roofed forest city, and we are going to just spend a little bit of time being introduced to the city and being introduced to the people. I introduced my city, Omo, earlier, and it was really interesting because I have like 82 people in that city, and during the stream, you only saw two of them, maybe three. So that's probably going to be the same this time. We are starting out in City Hall, but I'm actually going to move right on to the original lawn that I had when I first came here, and that will probably end up showing you the city in its present day. But we're just going to do a little history of it right now. So this is City Hall, and we'll talk about it later. We're going to go out this door, not that door, and I'll tell you why I have no idea what door I'm going out in a little bit. But, oh dear, it's raining and it's daytime. So let's just get drenched. On this very spot right here was the original campsite for the mine colonists. I came into this area from that castle over there. You see the marker in the sky for Spawn Castle. And I walked around the entire the land here and came across this connection right here, which is roofed forest with swamp and pine. Actually, those are birch trees on this river. And it was like, this is beautiful. I want to live here. So, hello, I see you. Welcome, welcome. I just started telling the story of New Mombasa, my second city. My mine colonies, all three of them are now cities. And we're starting with the lawn where I had the first campsite. And before or from this campsite, Vincentius Primus created, as he did for all of my earlier beginnings, created a special machine tower for me in this old dungeon. This dungeon tower had been abandoned, and when we originally found it, we went in. It's been changed recently. There used to be a door that went into a private living area, but that's not needed anymore. So that area was torn down because it was not part of the original dungeon. And this was the original dungeon, and as you can see, we are in the upper parts of it, and Vincentius Primus built all sorts of machines for me. Iron chest, which is one of the types of mods you can have, thermal expansion for power, refined storage, of course, and then cyclic, giving us uncrafting and a powered diamond anvil and extra utilities, giving us a place to put trash. And down here are the batteries and the grid that connects to the solar power on the roof. Right here is a loot box opener, and here, I don't think there's anything in here anymore. We used it for storage when we were rebuilding certain parts of the city. And so this tower was the original dungeon tower, and right here in this center are the stairs to the dungeon that have been closed up for years, for many of their years. And well, it's only been in this last year of their time that they have uncovered the dungeon and have started studying magical arts and started building towers, specifically uncovering the original castle, the original towers of the castle. This tower is stone art, magical arts tower, and as you can see, it's being built right. It's being uncovered right before our eyes by one of our by one of our builders, Simon. And this is Oak Tower. This tower was originally a full oak tower, but we turned it into a stone tower. This tower is partially buried, which is why this door was actually the balcony door of this tower, and now it is the door to the main roofed forest boardwalk. And this tower is the command tower for the military. We have militia now. We did start out originally with military, and I will talk about that. So from this castle, near castle, we began to set up this city, and this is the city of New Mombasa from the air. It's hard kind of to see a lot of it because it is mostly hidden in this forest right here. If I pass over, you begin to see some of the boardwalks that lead to different housing and some of the farms that are back in this area, and also the new industrial area that's over in this area along the swamp, and some other buildings that are in the process of being built and being restored, being built and being rebuilt. So originally when we got here, like with every mine colony city, there were 4 citizens, and the 4 citizens of this city this time were went into different business crafts. So here we are. These are our people, and London, James, and Ariana are 3 of the 4 original citizens. And in Mine Colony Omo, the stream I did for the city of Omo, and in this stream, I'm going to talk about the ones who are gone first. And who is gone from here is Logan Astley, who was the original builder, and he originally built the first city hall. This is actually the second city hall. He built the first city hall and began with the first housing. His builder's hut, Logan's builder's hut, was originally located right on this spot right here. This was the original tree that where his builder's hut was built. And from that builder's hut, he began most of the city projects. And one of the city projects that he began was to build a restaurant, of course, to build a fishing hut, a fishery for for citizens of the New Mombasa. So Ariana is the restaurant owner. She is the one of the original colonists, And she should have actually been his chosen, but they did not choose each other. They did not, they weren't interested in each other. So Logan was actually single, a single parent and single until his death. Now, we found out some information about Logan later, but we'll talk about that. And he also built this fishery for James. This is his fish farm right here. But James is one of the original colonists, and he oftentimes likes to fish in the actual lake here. So, and then he started building houses. This was one of the first houses that was built, and it's been renovated several times. But this is the house that Logan Sr. raised his family in, and when the immigration was lifted and he was allowed to bring his kids. He brought his kids here and raised them in this house. And he was working in what used to be a school that was located here. A Dark Oak school was located right on this spot. But that school was actually destroyed in a fire that destroyed the original City Hall. It was actually damaged in the fire, and so it was torn down because of the damage that it sustained in the fire. The City Hall was rebuilt from that fire. It was actually too badly damaged to be repaired, and so it was actually rebuilt. Logan raised his children in this house, and his children are Linda, who is the baby actually, and she lives in this house now. She is the shepherd, and this is the sheep farm that belongs to her. Linda was living in this house. She recently moved back into her family home because she is raising a child that belongs to one of her siblings. So this house is where Linda now lives, and she has a sheep farm. Going across this field, we have a museum to the original campsite. The original campsite was in front of City Hall, but this museum was built to show what it was like when they first came into New Mombasa. Across here, we have the home of Logan Jr. And Logan Jr. Is a farmer. He lives here with his chosen, who is Bibi. And Bibi is a farmer. She used to have her own little fields and grow melons and pumpkins, but recently, when both Logan Jr. and Bibi sold their land to have a new university be built here, she became the farmer who was in charge of flowers and plants for the university. So this is now what she grows. She is in charge of the flowers and plants that the university botanist, who is Aubrey, I think, uses in teaching about the land and the environment. However, when the university decided to build here, when the city of Omo decided to build the university here, this is the sugar farm for Logan Jr., and this field was preserved. And because this field was outside of the area that they needed, Logan Jr. realized that he could have his cane sugar fields relocated to this area here and his farmhouse relocated to this area. Both these areas are just outside of the land that used to be theirs. They used to have this entire area that I'm over top of where they had fields, BB and Logan Jr. So that is his second kid. Can I find his third and fourth kid? I might have to look them up in order to tell you who they are. And I'm going to go to an actual census that I have for them. And Cuthbert's so Cuthbert had three kids, and the first kid, Reynold, went immediately into the Marines, and we used to have a huge dark oak barracks located right next to City Hall, and it was located right here in this part of the city. These two dark oak trees right here are what remains of the barracks. These were barrack towers, and this was torn down to build the new university, which is what is now located on this land. It was very funny because when the university was built, this basement floor of the barracks remained and was not destroyed, and these armor stands were actually preserved. Now, this armor stand used to be an iron armor stand and sit right where this post is that's holding up the university, and so it was recovered and moved to this spot, and we added a chain armor stand as well. But these two armor stands are in the exact same position that they were in when this was a barracks and this was the enchanting room of the barracks. Now this is the memorial. This is the graveyard, actually, under the university for the people of New Mombasa. And these are the only people who have died. New Mombasa has had a very peaceful life, and even though they've had a lot of tragedy when it's come to their soldiers, their Marines. This is Philip Astley, who is Sir Philip Astley. When the Marines become iron class, they get the title Sir and Lady. So that means that he was iron class when he was killed. This is Lady Allison, and this is her sister, Knight Ellen Jervil. Both of them were in the military at one point and unfortunately got killed, mostly by mobs here. By the time New Mombasa got started, we did not experience a lot of raids because New Mombasa was able to take advantage of the truce that had been made in the city of Omo, and that truce enabled them to have a pretty peaceful life. However, there was still a disagreement with the local mobs, Lord Barthelius, and it took a long time. There are three lords in this vicinity. There is a swamp lord, there is a lord of the forest, and there is the pines lord. Lord Barthelius, the pines lord, actually is the one that we have the most agreeable situation with at the time, but the lord of the dark forest, the dark oak forest, he was not interested in making an agreement at the time, and there was warring. And I'm afraid that we actually took this land from the revenants who lived in this forest, and claimed it for ourselves at that particular time. So, as you can see, Sir Logan Astley Sr. is buried in this cemetery because, and we'll talk about his life. So, Logan was originally the principal of the school. Yay, thank you, Tyler. And we'll check on that later. Was the principal? Oh, excellent. Thank you. That's Cuthbert finishing our new farm. And Logan actually was the principal of the only school that we had in New Mombasa. We did not have a separate school and university the way we do now, and the way Omo and New Masekwe, my third colony, do. This is now the first school, because the kids who go to school start school when they're young adults. They do not go to school when they're children. They just play. And the university was built over here. This is very recent that the university was built here. So for the longest time, he was the dean of the school, where you went from the time you entered until you graduated from university. And then the city decided to explore magical arts and built a magical arts tower, an enchanter's tower, to study magical arts in the swamp, right on this location where this ranger tower is right now. They actually built a magical arts tower, and while it was being built, Logan expressed an extreme interest in studying magical arts. It was like he was waiting for it. He was ecstatically happy to do that, and he became the first professor of magical arts, and Martha took over dean of the university. And when he became professor of magical arts, he moved out from living with his daughter Linda in the family home, and he moved into this apartment building. Is that Tyler? Yes. And he lived here. While he was living here, this house was being built, and he kept coming over and looking at this house. He just loved this house for some reason. And it could have been that when he looked at this tree, he realized that he could have a secret passageway down into the ground from this tree to the Magical Arts Center. And some work was done to give him the ability to travel down into the ground, to make a tunnel. But then it was discovered, he discovered that he thought he had discovered a dungeon, but in fact it was an out what would you call it, corridor of the mine that Thaddy, our miner, was mining down in this area, and had all these mine I am a loss for words, but all these mining corridors underneath the ground here. And of course, he was very disappointed that it was just a mining corridor that he had discovered. Excuse me for a minute. I'm going to have Charles. It's not open yet. This restaurant isn't open yet. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have Tyler continue upgrading this. Um, so getting back to the beginning, Logan was disappointed, and so the city said, well, if you want to study a dungeon, you know where a dungeon is. And he was like, oh my gosh, of course. And so the city then, who had just randomly picked to put the Enchanter's Tower here, probably because it was on the swamp, and the city council figured that this was a good location for the Magical Arts Tower, but they moved the Magical Arts Tower, in other words, they rebuilt it, over near the near Castle, so that near Castle and this oak tower would be connected. And the interesting thing, it was planned from the beginning that Oak Tower and Near Castle would be connected, and that some connection would be made to the dungeon down below. So because of that, one of our other builders began building a house for Logan, the exact same type of house that he had liked on the other side. And I might have skipped the part where Logan was the original builder and he hated it. And when his grandson, interesting, is that true? That can't be true. Is Cuthbert? No, Cuthbert is his first son. Logan is his third son, and Linda is his baby girl. I'm going to cough. Just one moment. Sorry about that. So Cuthbert, his older son, so there were four kids. Cuthbert, his older son, took over the builder um, um, business that Logan Sr. had started. Reynold, the next in line, went into the Marines. Logan Jr. became a farmer, and Linda, the baby, she stayed home for the longest time. And a long time after Logan became a farmer, she decided to be a sheep farmer, but she stayed home and took care of her dad. She and her dad lived in this house for until he moved over to an apartment to be close to the new Enchanter Tower. And then when the Enchanter Tower was torn down and this tower was being built, Logan moved into this house right here. Now, Logan is an academic, and when he lived, who had his daughter taking care of him for all the time before he moved out of this house. So when he was over living in this apartment building, one of the young students who was interested in magical arts began to hang around and was completely infatuated. A student crush, not a love crush, just a student crush on the man who was an expert in what she wanted to study and who had the power to, get her to be able to study that and continue being really close to this amazing opportunity to explore the dungeon, which he desperately wanted to do. So when he moved into this house, she approached him and asked if she could be his intern or his assistant. And this is Gianna right here, his intern or his assistant, and he said yes. And so she moved in to, this is the house that she and Logan lived in, and This is the living area. And then Logan had this bedroom. I'm going to show you, even though she's sleeping. This was Logan's bedroom, and then he had her, Gianna, she had this little apartment up here for herself, including this beautiful patio, which she just loved. And when Logan got killed, she actually moved into his room, and I live here. This is where I live for the time being because I just loved it. So, but while Logan was alive, Gianna lived upstairs and Logan lived in that. And then when Oak Magic Tower was completed, and it was clear that they had discovered a corridor of the dungeon, a work was done to connect the house to the Magical Arts Center through the dungeon. So this is the ladder that leads down to a new hallway. This is actually a new hallway that leads to the original dungeon hallway of Near Castle that existed before the city existed. And this is the original dungeon, and you can see that because this is the original staircase down. I'm going to open this down from Near Castle. Now this staircase has been closed off for years. When Vincentius Primus arranged the upstairs so that there was machinery and living quarters was established, this dungeon was closed off. But before it was closed off, Vincentius Primus had actually come down to get materials needed, because we were still in survival at the time, to get materials needed for the building of the machines that are used upstairs. So there has been some recent re-exploration of just this level of the tower, but as you can see, the stairs that lead down to other levels have actually been closed off in this area and will be opened someday soon. We'll go through there, but this is the hallway that goes from that last green light in the floor is actually leads to Logan and Gianna's house and goes all the way to Near Castle. This is Near Castle right here, and these stairs go to Oak Castle. This is Oak Castle's original little mushroom and their grow room. The Enchanter Castle has a grow room, and they grow mushrooms and they grow netherwort here. And it would normally have been connected differently, but because of this hallway, it was in fact connected directly to the dungeon. And this is Oak Castle, as you can see on the inside, and this is the Enchanter room. That is the second Enchanter room where ender pearls are being grown. Now this is underground. This door actually is in front of lights. You can see that there are lights in this area because this part of the tower is completely underground, and we have to go all the way up in order to get to the part that is above ground. You can see the river right here on the first floor, but there are portions of this tower, this section, that are underground still. And this is one of the enchanter tables that the Minecolonies colonists use. And then up one more floor is the doorway that goes to the boardwalk that leads to the city, and then the other doorway that goes through to Nearcastle, which just goes to show you how high up we are in Nearcastle. We're pretty close to the two top floors of Nearcastle here. And then this is the command tower. And then this is where the newest tower, Stone Magic Tower, is going to be connected to the rest of the castle as soon as it's finished. And we saw that Simon is still working on this. This door will be connected to this hallway here, and this door right here is going to be connected directly to Oak Castle. And so the entire complex will be complete in a little while, and a second enchanter will join Gianna. So the reason that Logan is not here anymore is sort of a really sad story, because Logan was amazingly happy with living here and with working in this tower and discovering the dungeon down below and documenting all the historical information on the dungeon. And when this tower was first built and was joined together, it was such a happy day, because I was actually able to clear out this dungeon. Wow. Why don't I want to have a name for these hallways? This dungeon hallway. And I was walking down this dungeon hallway and I saw one of these. Now, if I went into the old areas of the dungeon, which I'm going to go into because I want to show you what that originally looked like. Let's go in here for a moment. In the dungeon used to have, and let's see if I can find one, these. And where in that area of the hallway, where there's now glowstone, in that area of the hallway there used to be one of those fire torches. I suppose you'd call it a torch. There was one here, and it was this was closed up, and then there was one right here. I believe these two right here were the ones that were closed off. This one was unlit. It actually, because this had been closed up, the fire had been put out. I believe the nether brick is even gone from this one. The nether brick might still be in this one. Nope, they're both gone. But there were originally nether bricks in this location, and those nether bricks actually could be lit. And I lit it, saying, oh, now that the dungeon is open, we can use this in order to light this hallway. We can put it back the way it was. Well, what I didn't realize was that because of the way Oak Tower had been built, this fire had been was available to the to portions of Oak Tower, and it set it on fire. So Oak Tower burned to the ground, and the sad part about it was that I didn't know it was on fire because I was touring the dungeon at the time and had found a zombie villager and was trying to rescue him, and I didn't realize that the sound that I was hearing was actually fire. And Gianna's just watching me tell this story. So at the time, I didn't know until it was too late that the entire building was on fire, and unfortunately, at the time that I realized it was exactly the same time that Logan realized it. And he was so busy in his studies, he didn't realize that the place was on fire. And when he tried to escape, there was no escape, and he unfortunately was killed in the fire. The entire city mourned his passing, and there was a memorial for him at City Hall, and he actually, and then his tag was placed in the memorial area, which at that time was the barracks, but was later moved to the new memorial underneath the university. So that was actually the story of the original, one of the first of our city's four colonists. And oh wow, and it is finished. It is finished. So the second Enchanter's Tower right here is finished. This is an attempt to have smoke, to have the idea that this is a chimney and smoke is coming out, but we don't need that intention, so we're just going to remove it. We will, in the week to come, work on connecting Stone Magic Tower to the rest of Near Castle, and then the entire castle will be complete, and there will be work done down in the dungeons by the two enchanters who are going to be collecting and archiving magic for the city of New Mombasa. Now, because this castle is, let me see if this is one of Lord Barthelius's sons. Nope, this is just a Marine who is reporting, a soldier, I should say. He has soldiers. I have Marines. He has soldiers. So, who reports to Lord Barthelius. Lord Barthelius is the Lord of the Plains, and where most of the revenants of the forest, the dark oak forest, fled and went into dark oak over here. There's still a lot of dark oak forest. We have a tiny corner of it. This was a huge dark oak forest, and well, we did have tiny corner, but now it looks like we have close to half of it. But at the time, we had a little teeny tiny part when we first started. And so that is the story of Logan and Logan's kids. Logan has a lot of children now, and a lot of grandchildren, great-grandchildren. There are at least 4 generations of people here. New Mombasa is very unusual because New Mombasa got started after there were children in Minecolonies. New Mombasa had an unusual experience of having the children arrive very early on, and so New Mombasa only has 4 names, 4 last names: the Astleys, the Jervilles, the Gomershalls, and the Barretts. And Elena Astley, believe it or not, is the second youngest Astley. Another Astley just came in, and she is Judith. Nope, she is not. Jasmine is the newest Astley. She came in for her dad, and so she's located very high up on this list because her father was the brother of Beatrice Gomershall. So because of that, Jasmine, even though she is the youngest member of the community, is located up very high. Elena came in for her great great grandfather. They arrived, and so that is why her name is up pretty high. But Astley, Jervil, Gomershall, and Barrett. So this is an extremely close-knit community, and it was this community that made me start doing a census to try and keep up with who was choosing who, and who was having children with who, so that it wouldn't quite be so close. Let's say that, so that it wouldn't be so close. So it's managed to be pretty okay. I'm sure that everybody is related to everybody else. There's Jasmine right now. She's underneath the boardwalk. The kids always love to go under the boardwalk. By the way, that is something that I should mention, that when the Lord of the Dark Oaks, the Revenant Skeleton, the skeleton who owned the Dark Oaks, was defeated, an agreement was made with him that we would have the boardwalk and he would have under the boardwalk. So under the boardwalk was supposed to be his land, and really is still. There's still a lot of under the boardwalk that is wild, and revenants still come in and have their pets and have their animals in these areas. This is all underneath the city. All of this is under the city, and but as the years have gone by, less and less of them are inclined to live among us. They don't necessarily like us. They're uncomfortable around us, and so there you have some sightings of them from time to time. Here's one of their soldiers. It's raining, so he's not concerned about burning. But because of that, our community has been using some of the lower grounds for things. For instance, you just saw a ranger student. That's a ranger student, Aubrey, and she's going down to practice. She's going down to hunt and practice with her bow in this area where it's still wild, and they can do that. So the ranger students come down. The new university, the new city hall, for example, built a garden underneath on the ground. It did not have this when it was in the original plans for City Hall, and then when City Hall was updated, because it was, and so I'll tell you what happened with City Hall. So two things happened while we were building the Magical Arts Towers, and you could say it was almost as if we disturbed some spirit or something, because the first Magical Arts Tower, Oak Tower, burned down and had to be rebuilt. This entire building burned. It wasn't made of stone at the time. It was Oak Tower, and that's why this building is still called Oak Tower, even though we rebuilt the Oak Tower and then covered it in stone. This was actually an oak tower, and we changed all the materials out on the outside to be stone. While we were down in the dungeon, after this tower had been rebuilt and we connected near Castle, we went down in the dungeon again to look at things and to explore, and we were having a wonderful time. We even found a mine connection down in the dungeon There was a rainstorm, it was a thunderstorm. The city hall, which at that time was taller than this city hall, was struck by lightning and burned down. And we didn't know it at the time, because no one was killed, thank goodness. And it just burned to the ground. We came out of near Castle, came back into the center of the city, and found the remnant of City Hall, which was really sad because I couldn't rebuild that City Hall the way it was. I had to rebuild the new City Hall, which was not it was not positioned in exactly the same position as the old City Hall, and that's what caused the school to be torn down. And when the City Hall burned, we had just finished building a new post office right here in a completely different style, mind you. It was bigger because this city hall was not positioned in this way, and there was more room. So we had built a city hall that built a post office. That post office got damaged and was torn down. There was a gazebo that was made out of wood that was located right here next to this bakery. This is actually a bakery right here. It it was actually torn down because it actually got some damage when we were working on when the fire happened. So all of these buildings, these 4 buildings in this area, were affected by the lightning strike and have now been rebuilt. There are some aspects of the rebuild. This was only recently, so there are some aspects of the rebuild that haven't been fixed yet. For instance, this tree hasn't started regrowing back. That's how short ago it was. We did rebuild the post office, but we couldn't use the original design because it was too big now to fit in the space that was left over once the new city hall was built. So we built this birch style post office, and because it had a helicopter pad on top, that part has been left uncovered. Instead of putting the school back here, this was the university, and it was built at the time, and the university became the first school again, where there was only one school. And it was decided to put a magical arts building here, and the Dark Oak Magical Arts Building became the foundation. So this is the Magical Arts Foundation building. This is the building where the second professor of magical arts, Wilmot, actually does the business of funding the art studies, the magical art studies, and connects to the other 2 cities who have magical arts studies as well. So this is her building. This is the administration building for Near Castle Complex, which is an archaeological dig essentially. And so this is the building in town, and it was placed here. And since we had moved the school already, and we placed that building there, when it came time to decide to build another university, there was enough peace that it was decided that we did not need the monster barracks that was located in this area here. And you can see how big this section is. So the barracks covered this entire section right here. And it was perfect for putting in the new university right there, so we could actually Let me just make sure that's not nope, that's a normal zombie. He's probably watching the spiders that I saw and a creeper. Those are revenant animals, and they usually have either a zombie or a soldier watching those animals at night. And um, when it came time to build a new university, since we already had this school built out of the new dark oak design for the university, we decided to use the jungle design, and which worked perfectly because, of course, the jungle design was meant to be on a boardwalk. And in jungle design, they just happen to use dark oak when they're building their buildings. They love dark oak in the jungle, and they use it. So that meant that I had less to do to cover this building with dark oak materials. I only had to take off the shingle roofs and to cover. As you can see, this one's not complete yet, but to cover the roof with dark oak, which is the way the dark oak city buildings are built. And so this is now Cuthbert's new builder's hut. He was using his father's builder's hut for the longest time, but then he had a new design for a builder's hut that gave him more room, much more room, gave him an upstairs where he has his desk and where's his coffee? Oh, it's probably downstairs. Is his coffee downstairs? Does he not have a coffee maker? Let's look and see. He doesn't. Let's put a coffee maker on his counter here. I can go in here and get him a coffee maker. I should have said in the beginning, like I did with my stream for Omo, the city of Omo, that I am in creative. I started in survival. I was challenged by one of my viewers on Twitch and Mixer to do creative, since I'm not interested in fighting and that I'm interested in building. And so I didn't really want to, but I have come to actually really enjoy the freedom of being able to build easily in creative. And I kept all the aspects of survival by starting in survival and having the landscape and then building on it, instead of creative usually just gives you this flat landscape. I don't like it. I know there are others who build wonderful, magnificent cities. It's not something that I like to do. I like when they build their own cities. And this Minecolonies city is built entirely by the colonists. The decorations, alterations, and some of the upgrading is done by me, but the original building is done by them. I'm not really a builder when it comes to, I see these people who make these magnificent buildings, and it's so wonderful, and they're wonderful people who do it. I'm not interested in that. A friend who watches me said that I'm a cake decorator, and in some respects that is probably the best way to describe what I do. They build the building, and then I come in and I change it, I customize it to make it. Did I not get her? I didn't. Here. I customize them to Simon's chickens every once in a while escape. I customize the buildings to make them different. Otherwise, everything would look the same. because there's only so many houses that you can build. There's only so many schools. There's only so many restaurants. And so it becomes a thing of how to have a viable city with a limited number of buildings. And so this is what I do, and this is my city of New Mombasa. And when we come back, we'll look at one of the other original colonists. This is what I'm going to do. These are my Sunday streams, and in the process, we'll try and show some of the city the way it is now. You can see the people living their lives while I'm giving this tour and talking about the history, but this is New Mombasa. And thank you for joining me in the history of this, and I hope you'll come back. I'm going to do these on Sundays, and later on today, I'm going to stream my third and final city at the present. It's my third city. I'm going to stream New Misequei, and earlier today, I actually streamed the first city, Omo, and that stream is up on YouTube. If you want to watch me work in New Mombasa and actually do the city on a real-time basis, you can go to my Twitch Roslydian or my Mixer Roslydian. I do half of a stream in Twitch and then a second half of a stream in Mixer, and then on Sundays I intend to do tours of the city with the way it is now and tell the history of the people who live there. So that is who I am and what is going on here, and thank you for being here. Thank you very much for being one of my first watchers, my constant viewer. I know that's you. Thank you so much for being here, and enjoy watching all the other streamers. Bye for now. Bye for now.